The playground sparkled in the late afternoon sun, alive with laughter and running feet. Children darted across the swings and slides, but near the far bench sat a little girl in a wheelchair, her small hands folded neatly on her lap. 8-year-old Emily, the daughter of a wealthy CEO, watched the other kids play, her heart aching with a quiet longing. Since the accident that left her paralyzed from the waist down, she often felt invisible in spaces filled with carefree energy. Today was no different. Parents glanced her way with polite smiles, but their children ran past, not knowing how to include her. The loneliness clung to her like a shadow. Emily's wheelchair rested near the edge of the playground, just far enough from the swings and slides that she could see everything, yet not so close that anyone would bump into her. The late afternoon sun painted golden streaks across the ground, and children's laughter rang like bells in the warm air. Little sneakers pounded against the rubber matting, mothers called reminders about snacks, and a group of boys raced each other to the top of the climbing frame. She folded her hands in her lap, her fingers twisting at the hem of her dress. She tried to smile whenever another child darted past, but her smile quickly faded when no one stopped. It wasn't their fault. They didn't know how to play with someone who couldn't run, climb, or jump. But every time they sped by, she felt like the world was moving forward without her. The accident had happened a year ago, yet she remembered it as clearly as if it were yesterday. One careless turn on the road, one shattering sound of metal against metal, and her life had split into before and after. Before, she had been the girl who led the races in gym class, the one who climbed the highest and laughed the loudest. After, she became the girl in the chair, the one people whispered about, the one who sat on the sidelines while life happened in front of her. She sighed and tilted her head back, watching the sky. A cloud floated lazily, changing shapes as it drifted. Emily closed her eyes for a moment, imagining herself running again, chasing that cloud with wind in her hair. Her heart ached, not just for the things she could no longer do, but for the friendships that had quietly slipped away. Some of her classmates still waved to her in school hallways, but few sat beside her at lunch. Invitations to birthday parties had stopped coming. Her father, busy with his endless meetings and phone calls, always promised that things would get better. "You're strong, Emily," he would say, kissing her forehead before rushing off. But strength didn't chase away loneliness. Sitting here, surrounded by joy that seemed so unreachable, Emily felt like a glass wall separated her from the rest of the world. She blinked back the sting in her eyes. She didn't want to cry. Not here, not where everyone could see. Instead, she straightened her posture, as though pretending to be confident would make the emptiness go away. But deep down, she longed for someone, just one person, to see her not as the girl in the wheelchair, but simply as Emily. From the other side of the playground, Daniel stood leaning against a lamppost, his eyes following Lily as she darted around with her boundless energy. At 7, she was all giggles, scraped knees, and endless questions about the world. He loved watching her play. It reminded him that despite the struggles of being a single father, there was still so much joy in the small moments. But today, something tugged at his attention. He noticed Lily had stopped mid-run, her sneakers skidding slightly in the sand. Her gaze wasn't on the slide or the swings anymore. Instead, she was staring at a little girl in a wheelchair, sitting alone at the far edge of the park. "Daddy," Lily called softly, trotting back to him and tugging on his hand. "Why is that girl just sitting there? She looks kind of sad." Daniel followed her line of sight. His chest tightened at the sight of the child's lonely figure, her small shoulders slumped as though the weight of the world rested on them. It wasn't pity he felt, more an ache of recognition. He knew what it meant to be set apart, to feel like the world had moved on without you. After his wife passed away 2 years ago, he had felt that same isolation. If not for Lily, he might have drowned in it. Kneeling down so he was at eye level with his daughter, Daniel placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Sometimes people are sitting alone because no one's asked them to play," he explained softly. "Do you think she'd like it if you said hello?" Lily's ponytail bounced as she nodded eagerly. "I think so. She looks like she's waiting for a friend." Then her voice grew uncertain, almost shy. "But, what if she doesn't want to? What if I say the wrong thing?" Daniel smiled at her honesty. "That's the wonderful thing about kindness, sweetheart, it doesn't have to be perfect. All you need to do is try. He paused, squeezing her shoulder. How about we go together? I'll help you. That seemed to erase Lily's hesitation. She straightened her small back, clutching the doll she had insisted on bringing from home, and took her father's hand. Together, they started across the playground. The distance between them and the little girl felt longer than it should have, each step heavy with the unspoken question of how they would be received. Daniel's heart beat a little faster, not because he feared rejection for himself, but because he wanted to shield his daughter from it. Yet deep down, he believed this was the right thing to do. As they drew closer, Daniel studied the girl more carefully. She was beautiful, with wide, thoughtful eyes that seemed older than her years, and she wore a pastel dress that swayed lightly in the breeze. But it wasn't her chair that struck him, it was the way she looked at the playground, as though watching a world she desperately wanted to step into but couldn't. He glanced down at Lily, who was already smiling bravely, ready to extend her hand in friendship. Daniel felt a surge of pride. It wasn't always easy raising her alone, balancing work and sleepless nights, but moments like this reminded him he was doing something right. And so, with the late sun casting long shadows at their feet, a single father and his little girl walked toward the child who thought she had been forgotten. Emily had just been watching the swings when she noticed movement in her periphery. Her heart skipped as she realized a man and a little girl were walking straight toward her. For a fleeting second, she wondered if she was in the way, if they would politely ask her to move so they could sit on the bench behind her. She straightened nervously, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear, ready to retreat into silence. But when they stopped, the man crouched down so that his eyes were level with hers. His expression wasn't distant or polite, it was warm, steady, and kind. "Hi there," he said gently, his voice carrying none of the awkward hesitation she was used to. "My daughter, Lily, was wondering if you'd like some company. She'd love to play with you." Emily blinked, stunned. Company. Someone wanted to sit with her. For a moment, her lips trembled as though the words wouldn't come. She had grown used to children rushing past, pretending not to notice her chair, or whispering questions she wasn't meant to hear. This was different. Before she could find her voice, the little girl stepped forward. Lily's eyes were wide and open, without a trace of pity, just curiosity and excitement. Clutched in her hands was a doll with frayed hair and a dress stitched on one side. "Do you like dolls?" Lily asked, tilting her head with a hopeful grin. "I brought mine. Her name's Rosie, and she really wants a new friend." She held the doll out as though offering treasure. Emily's breath caught. Slowly, hesitantly, she reached out. Her fingers curled around the doll's soft fabric, and for the first time in a long while, she smiled. Not the polite kind she used when adults expected it, but a real, glowing smile that reached her eyes. "She's beautiful," Emily whispered. "Thank you. I'd love to play." Lily plopped down on the bench beside her, swinging her legs happily. "Rosie likes adventures. Sometimes she's a pirate, sometimes she's a princess. What do you think she should be today?" Emily's laugh bubbled out before she could stop it. It startled her, that sound, light, unguarded, almost forgotten. "Maybe a race car driver," she suggested shyly. Lily gasped with delight. Yes, a race car driver. Rosie's never done that before. She grabbed a twig from the ground, pretending it was a steering wheel, and the two girls began giggling as they raced their dolls across their laps. Daniel sat quietly beside them, watching. He didn't interrupt, didn't guide the play, he simply let it unfold. And as he listened to their laughter blend together, something swelled in his chest. He didn't see a lonely girl in a wheelchair anymore. He saw a child full of imagination, who only needed someone to reach across the invisible gap that separated her from the world. Emily's eyes sparkled as she glanced between Lily and Daniel. This wasn't charity. This wasn't forced politeness. This was friendship. Pure, uncalculated, real. And for the first time since the accident, she felt like she wasn't an outsider looking in. She belonged. The sun was beginning to dip lower, its golden rays washing the playground in a soft glow. Emily and Lily were still on the bench, dolls in hand, laughing so hard their sides hurt. Their dolls had raced across invisible tracks, flown through the skies as superheroes, and even survived a daring rescue mission from the lava that was really just a patch of sand. For Emily, the minutes had slipped by like seconds. For once, she wasn't counting the time, wasn't aware of her chair, wasn't thinking about what she couldn't do. She was simply a child playing with a friend. Standing a short distance away, a tall figure paused mid-step. Richard, Emily's father, had arrived straight from a business meeting, his suit jacket slung over one arm, phone still buzzing in his pocket. He had expected to find his daughter in the same way he often did at the park, quiet, withdrawn, watching others live the life she no longer could. But what he saw stopped him cold. Emily's face was glowing, her laughter ringing out like music he hadn't heard in months. Her small hands moved animatedly as she guided the doll across her lap, her eyes alive with mischief and joy. And beside her sat a little girl, smiling just as brightly, while a man, her father, Richard assumed, watched over them with a calm, contented expression. For a long moment, Richard couldn't move. The sight pierced through the armor he wore every day as a CEO, the walls of schedules, deadlines, and endless pressure. Here was his daughter, free of sadness, because someone had taken the time to simply see her. As the game wound down, Daniel rose politely, giving the girls a moment to say goodbye. Lily hugged her doll tightly and turned to Emily. "We'll come back tomorrow, okay? Rosie says she wants to race again." Emily nodded eagerly, her cheeks still flushed from laughter. "I'd like that," she whispered. "A lot." When Daniel looked up, Richard was there, stepping forward with a rare softness in his eyes. For a moment, the two men just regarded each other, the wealthy CEO in a tailored suit, and the single father in a simple shirt and jeans. Different worlds, yet bound in this instant by something beyond status. Richard extended his hand. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice rougher than he intended. "I can close deals, run companies, make speeches to thousands, but I couldn't give her what you just did." His eyes flickered to Emily, still glowing beside Lily. "You gave her back a piece of herself." Daniel shook his hand firmly, a modest smile tugging at his lips. "All it took was asking if she wanted to play. Sometimes that's all kids need, someone willing to reach out." For once, Richard didn't have a polished reply. He simply nodded, humbled in a way he hadn't been in years. As Daniel and Lily began to walk away, Emily waved until they were out of sight, her heart buoyant with something she hadn't felt in far too long, belonging. Richard sat down beside her, his phone forgotten. "You look happy," he murmured. Emily leaned against him, her smile still lingering. "Daddy," she said softly, "I made a new friend." And in that quiet moment, as the last rays of sun slipped over the horizon, Richard realized no business success could ever compare to the gift of seeing his daughter laugh again.